Trump family in trouble. Ivanka faces explosive legal showdown. In American politics, legal accountability and political power often collide in slow motion, not with a single dramatic explosion, but through a steady accumulation of facts, filings, and consequences. That's the dynamic now surrounding Ivanka Trump, whose evolving legal exposure has become a focal point in the broader scrutiny of the Trump family's business and political legacy. While much of the public attention in recent years has centered on her father, Donald Trump, the emerging questions about Ivanka's role in key financial and operational decisions are beginning to take on their own legal and political weight. And if the pattern of past investigations is any guide, the implications may extend far beyond one individual. This is not just another chapter in a long-running political drama. It may be a test of how deeply institutional accountability can reach when power, family, and business become tightly intertwined. The legal pressure point. At the heart of the current situation is a gross valuation practices and internal decision-making connected to the Trump organization. Investigators have long examined whether the company systematically misrepresented asset values for financial advantage, inflating them to secure loans while deflating them for tax purposes. In earlier phases of litigation, Ivanka Trump appeared to occupy an unusual legal position, both central to major business operations and, at times, somewhat shielded from the most immediate legal consequences. But that balance may be shifting. Legal analysts point to renewed attention on communications, certifications, and representations tied to major real estate transactions. The key question is not simply whether questionable valuations occurred, courts have already wrestled extensively with that issue, but who specifically approved, reviewed, or benefited from them. Prosecutors and civil investigators often focus on documentary trails, emails, financial statements, and sworn attestations. Ivanka's involvement in high-level executive roles means her name appears in precisely the kind of paper record that legal proceedings rely on most heavily. Why her position is uniquely complicated. Ivanka Trump's legal exposure differs from that of other family members in one important way. She has long been presented as both an executive decision-maker and a public-facing figure positioned slightly apart from the organization's most controversial operations. That dual identity once provided political insulation. Now it may invite deeper scrutiny. Unlike purely operational executives, Ivanka also held a prominent public role in the White House during her father's presidency. That blending of private business leadership and federal policy influence created overlapping timelines and potentially overlapping legal questions. Investigators often look closely at whether private financial interests intersected with public responsibilities. Even when no direct wrongdoing is established, the mere possibility of blurred boundaries can intensify scrutiny and raise the stakes of legal proceedings. The broader investigatory landscape. To understand the gravity of the moment, it helps to place the current developments within the wider legal environment surrounding the Trump orbit over the past several years. Civil litigation led by Letitia James has pursued claims of persistent financial misrepresentation tied to corporate practices. Meanwhile, criminal inquiries handled by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office have examined tax strategies and accounting structures linked to company executives. These cases established a pattern. Prosecutors and regulators were willing to challenge not only corporate entities, but also individual decision-makers within the leadership structure. In that context, renewed attention on Ivanka is less an abrupt escalation than a continuation of an investigatory trajectory that has gradually widened its focus. Legal risk versus political fallout. Legal jeopardy and political consequence do not always move in tandem. Sometimes legal trouble strengthens political support. Sometimes it erodes it. What makes this moment different is that Ivanka Trump has long been viewed as a potential bridge between the Trump political brand and more conventional establishment acceptance. If her legal exposure deepens, that bridge could weaken significantly. For the Trump family's broader political ambitions, whether electoral, institutional, or reputational, Ivanka's status matters. She has often been framed as a stabilizing presence, someone capable of translating the family's influence into a more mainstream political future. Legal entanglement complicates that narrative. Even absent criminal liability, prolonged courtroom visibility can reshape public perception. Depositions, document disclosures, and judicial findings can carry political consequences regardless of their legal outcomes. The structural stakes for the Trump family. Beyond individual liability lies a more fundamental issue: governance and control within a family-run business empire that has operated for decades with overlapping roles and informal lines of authority. Legal proceedings frequently expose how decisions are actually made inside organizations, not just how they appear on paper. If litigation reveals systemic patterns rather than isolated incidents, it may reshape how regulators, lenders, and political institutions interact with the Trump family's business network going forward. That could affect everything from financing access to regulatory oversight to future political credibility. For families whose economic and political identities are tightly linked, reputational damage in one sphere almost inevitably spills into the other. The long shadow of documentation. One of the defining features of modern financial litigation is its reliance on records that accumulate over years or even decades. Unlike fast-moving criminal investigations, complex corporate cases often unfold slowly, assembling detailed narratives from contracts, statements, and sworn testimony. This creates a form of delayed accountability. Actions that once appeared routine, signing a certification, approving a valuation, forwarding a document, can later be reinterpreted in the context of a broader legal theory. That retrospective reinterpretation is often where high-profile cases gain their momentum. Ivanka Trump's exposure, therefore, depends not just on present legal strategy, but on how past documentation is reconstructed and framed. The political narrative battle. Legal proceedings occur in courtrooms, but their interpretation unfolds in the public sphere. Supporters may frame the scrutiny as politically motivated targeting. Critics may present it as long-delayed accountability. Both narratives can coexist, shaping public perception long before final rulings emerge. This narrative contest is not peripheral, it is central. In high-profile political families, reputation is itself a strategic asset. If legal developments shift the perception of Ivanka Trump from peripheral participant to central decision-maker, the political calculus surrounding the entire Trump network could change. What comes next? The immediate future will likely hinge on procedural developments, motions, evidentiary rulings, and the pace of document review. These are technical steps, but they determine the trajectory of the case. More broadly, the situation raises enduring questions about how American institutions handle concentrated family power that spans business, government, and political influence. Will the legal system treat corporate leadership within political dynasties the same way it treats leadership in conventional firms? Or does public prominence create additional layers of scrutiny and expectation? A defining moment, not a final verdict. It is too early to predict the ultimate legal outcome. Courts move methodically, and high-profile litigation often produces surprises in both directions. But one conclusion already seems clear. Scrutiny of Ivanka Trump marks a new phase in the long-running legal examination of the Trump family's business and political legacy. Whether this moment becomes a turning point or merely another chapter will depend on what the evidence ultimately shows and how institutions respond to it. In the meantime, the convergence of law, power, and family continues to unfold in real time, offering a revealing test of accountability at the highest levels of American public life.